Well, the story of how this car came to our shop is kind of interesting. It was a weekend, and about this time last year, so a little over 12 months ago, and Bill Lilly, another Connecticut resident that is interested in early motoring, gave me a call and said, hey, can I drop by with my car? I was headed out to an event, and I've got some problems, and I was wondering if you might be able to help. And I happened to be here in the shop, and they said, sure, come on by. And he and his wife came in with the truck and trailer on a Saturday, and here's Bill. He can probably fill you in on what was going on.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. Well, I was getting ready to do the Audrain 50-mile run in 2023. And of course, I wait till the last minute to get everything ready. And as I was trying to fire it up, it wouldn't fire up that day. I had the burner go on for 20 minutes, and I had 0 steam pressure. And it's like, that's not a good thing. And so I came over to see Mark, and I think both of us thought initially that, well, you know, let's get into it, and we'll figure it out, and we'll get you ready to go in a few days here and go do the run. Well, then almost literally the wheels fell off, and as we got into it, it was one thing led to another, and it was a substantial amount of work. So we've been working on it for over a year. When I first got it, we were able to fire it up and run it, and the thing about it was each time I did it, it did something different. It didn't behave itself. It was not repeatable. It fired up, it generated steam, and we could run it down the road. I showed it a few times, and it won. Every time I showed it, it won. But the stuff that you can't see once you get into it, I mean, what Mark pointed out once he got into it, when I first dropped it off, is it's a wonder this didn't fall apart on your trailer. Like the boiler was basically unsupported, and the boiler itself was shot. No wonder I couldn't generate any steam. It was full of crap.
And the other part of it is that we can't compromise the safety of this car because it's going to drive down the road. This owner wants to drive this car, and so we have to make it as safe as a 1904 Stanley can possibly be. And so if we have a compromise somewhere in an original component that could hurt somebody, we simply have to come up with a way of addressing it. So sometimes we go through some hoops that you would think were crazy to try to save this part, and at the same time make it safe enough to be a competent car on the road. And on top of that, most everyone that has a restoration that's done to this level or this much detail wants it to be beautiful. So we have to make it beautiful, we have to make it safe, and we have to keep the originality of the car intact, because that's where the real value of this thing is.
And I'm an engineer, and it's just an extraordinary, I don't know what to call it, assemblage of parts and pieces and machining, and for machinists in the trade and engineers who just fall in love with this car in terms of the quality and the workmanship that went into it. And back 120 years ago and even today to restore it.
We had things that were completely burned out from fire over 120 years of operation. Then we had other things that were replaced, and not necessarily replaced with materials that we would prefer to have there. So what we had to do was then make repairs and make judgment calls on how to repair the thing to save every piece of the original body. And you'll notice on this piece, there's the original serial number from the body, and any kind of marking like that is really valuable to us, but it gives us a lot more of the history of the car. And mind you, this car, it was an Amelia Island first place winner. It was a national first place junior and senior winner with AACA, and an AACA Grand National winner. So prior to us getting this car, it was already a very well known and pedigreed car. It also completed the London to Brighton tour from London to Brighton in England, which is a significant event for cars that are 1904 and earlier. It has a certain panache to collectors because it is a Brighton era car, and that means a lot. And then on top of that, it was, in the date of its manufacture, the top of the line car for Stanley. So this was a big step up from the cars that they were producing in 1, 2, and 3, and in 4 for the most part. It was a brand new offering. It had a much larger engine. It had a 16-inch boiler, which was 2 inches bigger than the last, which is exponentially more steam reserve. It had a much stouter chassis. They started out with a Model A, and then a B and a C. This is a CX, and the X stands for extra, obviously, because it's got a bigger engine and a bigger boiler. So this was the growth of trying to live up to the competition that was coming from electric cars, internal combustion cars, other steam cars, and just the natural progression where, generally you end up with more and more horsepower, more and more capability, and this car certainly had it. So it carries a very, very similar body style to the Model Bs and the Model Cs. This would be, in the smaller version, this would be a Model C because it has a solid seat and it has a covered seat in the front. A B would have an open seat in the front and it would have a spindled seat in the back. But because this car was built in 1904, it has, in modern times, a much higher status because it's a London and Brighton eligible vehicle. The way this car operates is with a burner and a fire tube boiler. So it's a boiler where the tubes are basically flues that draw the flame from the burner through them, and around those tubes is a cavity where the water resides, and hopefully when you make the steam resides, and the steam is what pushes the pistons back and forth. So it has to have a lot of systems to keep the thing running in an automatic way. So we've got valves and routing of fuel and water and air that all have to come together. And everything is mechanical. There isn't anything on these cars that isn't a mechanical system. And so oftentimes we find that one little grain of sand will throw the entire system off, and you have to be kind of resourceful to figure out how to do it. And that only happens over time and practice. So Pete, why don't we talk about some of the things that happened from the day this car came in, sort of as a surprise, and the things that transpired during the restoration of this car, which was different than most of the ones we've ever done, really.
Well, the first thing and the most obvious was that the body was almost broken in half. All the cars with this style body, whether they're gas cars, steam cars, whatever, have a problem right at the midsection where you leave the box portion of the back and go to the open cockpit, and that leaves the main frame rails unsupported by the skin. So they all sag there, and this one was significantly sagged. It was 1.5 inches on one side, 1.25 inches on the other, and on a 7-foot wheelbase, that's significant. What we had to do with this, because the main frame rails had been severely compromised and much of the cross members had been burnt away, is we did an internal perimeter where we flitched steel to the sides and screwed it in to the sides. And then the cross members around the boiler, we did in box steel. And then the cross members under the pump pit, we actually just have a single plate of steel, and then we put wood around it so that you still see the wooden cross members and it gives the same appearance, but it's cored with the steel. And what this did is it made it so that we could actually use all of the original framing and still have a good solid structure. The other thing that we did, and this is something you'll see very often on wooden cars, is we added a truss system. And so we have a rod that mounts under the spring perches, both front and rear, comes down, and right at the point of the car, which actually is the weak point, where you transition from a skin to an open cockpit, we have a jack post. And what that does is it keeps the body nice and straight. The other thing we did is we took advantage of the form of the body, and we had a piece of steel bent, and this runs the full length of the body, and you can't see it really, and it just gives more structure. So, the cars now are going to be going down the road faster than they were originally, because they were all on dirt roads back in the day. You're going to be carrying a heavier load. And so preserve the body, we felt that we wanted to give it as much help and as much structure as we possibly could. One of the other things that we do on the original wooden bodies is after we strip them and we apply penetrating epoxy, what we found is on the inside of the body, on the panels, we'll actually wet in carbon fiber, and that incredibly stiffens the body. It keeps the wood from splitting, but the amount of strength and structure that it gives it. The other thing that's kind of interesting is a lot of the old bodies were actually, you'll find they had Irish linen wetted into them, and so it's not something that's even unheard of, back in the day. But carbon fiber is exceedingly strong, and it just, again, everything that it sort of works with the whole system. Is every little bit that we add that gives a little more rigidity to the body just helps it along. So it's not just, one item is carrying the load. Yeah. We've got it so that it's shared across the whole system. Even to straighten the body, once we had it stripped, we built a full box form that we had this thing on the two ends pulled down, and we had hydraulic jacks jacking it up over a period of time and just slowly straightening the body, taking that bow. And actually, when we ended it, we actually had a little bit of a camber to it, which we felt we would want to just leave just a little, so that once the body relaxed, it would want to hold itself straight, not have any tendency to go back to its former bowed shape.
And really, all of the different materials in the car, wherever we can use a traditional material, we do. This car also, because one of the reasons why this car needed all of this woodworking was because of the fire issues that it has had over the last 120 years. This car, and normally this car would be loaded with asbestos, because back in the day, asbestos was the best insulating and fire protection that a manufacturer could come up with. We don't have any of that. We're using ceramics instead.
Aramids.
And aramids, things that are deemed safe by modern standards, but that perform sometimes better as well, or many times better than the original asbestos that would have been on the car. So everywhere that we look for products that can duplicate the aesthetics while either enhancing or at least meeting the performance of the original components. And that goes for what we did with the chassis, that goes for what we've done with the skins and the body panels, even right down to the paint. The paint system on this car is very similar to the same style of paint that they would have used back in the day. Modern chemicals, but the layering system of the paint, which is what we feel is the most significant, is very, very, very close. Our application is in spray, not by brush, but all other than that, it is the same system. So it's color, it's primers, then color, then a top coating. So this is a base coat, clear coat car like you would see on a modern automobile. But our slight adjustment to that is that we have to adjust our color layer because a varnish would have an amber tint and our clear coat is clear. So we have to develop a way of coming up with that same finished product by modifying the color ever so slightly, the color coat, so that the end product will be extremely accurate to what the original colors of the car would be and the original finish of the car. When you get into it this deep, you sometimes, as a restorer, wonder, well, is the customer really going to understand what this is all about? Mm-hmm. Bill really got it, and as we went along, Bill actually was integral part of the process of what we were doing here. For me, it's just an absolute passion to be able to do this. I mean, the opportunity for this to come into your shop, mm-hmm. and then to have somebody say, "Let's go for it," is absolutely over the top for any person who's a restorer and that is into this like I am. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's a great honor to work on the car.
if you're not going to do it, nobody's going to do it.
Well, that's right. Yeah. See if I can say this without getting choked up.
Yeah.
But that's exactly right. I mean, now's this car's time. I mean, we're at a unique place. This is unique in the world to do this kind of work. I have a passion for it. I own the car, and it's like, if we don't do it, I mean, now it'll last another 100 years, and if we don't do it, it won't get done. And it'll be in a trash heap somewhere, and we have to do it.
Yeah, we do kind of get choked up over what we go through and the lengths that we have to take to keep them alive. And you know, it's a certain kind of individual that will dedicate themselves to caring for something like this, and when it's in trouble like this car, to bring it back. At this point, this is I would call it a major historical document for early transportation in the United States.